You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!
What a night. It's 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock over here on the East Coast, broadcasting live from the docks of the old parachute factory in Westchester, New York. And we are being picked up live all across the world. If you were awake, it's up to you. Some places it's obscenely late. Late hours at night, early morning. Or you're listening to this years down the line because everything is on demand, which is cool too. And one day we will be able to say you can get us on shortwave radio and then give out the frequency. But that's not the case right now. And hell, we've got a great show. So I want to just I want to line it up all really nice for you right now. And I want to thank our wonderful sponsors for tonight, this episode of Quite Frankly, ladies and gentlemen. And please don't skip. Please don't skip. Because it's only 30 seconds of your time. And I love you. And I need this. I need to tell you guys about the Farmalogical bone broth that I have added to the Quite Frankly health stack. That is, we've got two things at the foundation of it right now. But here it is. Ladies and gentlemen, there you go. Powered by our friends at Farmalogical Bone Broth, the cleanest, most nutrient-dense bone broth on the planet, dare I say, right from New Zealand. Just 1 cup a day, all you need, gives the body a full spectrum collagen blast. It's 3 types of collagen, amino acids, minerals that all of our modern diets are missing, quite frankly. It rebuilds your gut lining. It strengthens your joints, your bones, supports glowing skin and hair, whatever the hell it is. It also sharpens your focus, which is great. On top of that, there's the immune system thing. Yeah, maybe you don't, I mean, hey, if you want to break your fast, there's nothing better to break your fast within some bone broth, but you should definitely have some of this ready for cold and flu season, so-called, but it basically upgrades every single system in your body. You can sip it straight, you can put it in soups and stews, whatever the hell it is, but the bonus is that you can mix it with keto brains, which is what I have in here right now. It's what I have in this little thermos, and of course, I forgot this is my bad thermos. It's the Dallas Cowboys thermos I got to throw out because it doesn't keep anything hot. It is merely warm right now, and I'm a little disenchanted with it. That's my fault. It's not the bone broth's fault, and it's not the keto brain's fault. I'm telling you, I'm building an unbeatable daily stack. Farmalogical bone broth at the base of it. Keto brains, that's the base of the pyramid right there. So you can grab a bag at farmalogical.com. It's in the description of the episode. Use promo code Frankly for 15% off. Or you email me, frank@quitefrankly.tv. Say, Frank, I want some samples, and we'll get you a sample of the bone broth. Just like with Keto Brains, get in touch with me. This is your health. This is not like, good new flavor bubble gum that came out. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, so that's all I have to say, and thank you for bearing with me. Thank you so much, and thank you, Farmalogical. I gotta say, last night's show was really, I had a great time last night. I loved last night's snow. I knew, except I better have some more keto brains. Suck. My brain is a fucked up. There's something about last night's show that I want to reproduce every night. But of course, the way of the world, the way of the internet always holds you back in some way. But it's gotta stop caring about that shit. Of course, the title wouldn't have the highest click-through rate. Tuesday night chill fest, mixed news and open lines. Oh man. Well, you know what? That used to do the trick. When we were just being ourselves, and people who wanted to see that kind of stuff got notifications. And it just felt good to hang with you guys last night. And you know what? Algorithm be damned. We have to do more of it. Perhaps there are viral moments inside of all those chill fests that we are just going to have to be responsible of digging out and putting out there. And that's how the show grows. To hell with it. That's what we are. We're a talk show. And that's why I have been able to build this connection with so many of you out there, which I am so grateful for. I said that to you guys, whoever was there for the flip side last night. I just took a moment to say, you have no clue how much I appreciate you guys. And there's a molten core of this audience that shows up every night. And then, of course, the next day and over the course of the next 2 days. I know that you guys out there, you're regular. You may not watch live, but you're regular. And that is enough to carry us through any kind of growing pains or backsliding that the internet is going to throw at people every now and again. And the last 2 years have been quite a learning experience. Just want to say once again, you guys make this really, really fun to show up every night. Even if it's a daunting task. I spend more time working on titles and thumbnails than I do actually writing the show. That kills me. That really sucks the life out of me. But I know that you guys are waiting. I know the core is here waiting every night, and that really puts wind back in the sails. Another thing I really enjoyed last night was when I got home and I uploaded everything, I was done. And I went into the kitchen to grab myself a glass of water, and I put on my talk stream, my paranormal radio app. And I went, clicking through and stuff. And usually there's John B. Wells is on. And there's the U7 radio, all the old coast to coast. It's just nonstop old coast to coast. So I listen to that sometimes. And then, of course, Clyde Lewis and Ground Zero would be on there all the time. And they're still listed there because they play all the reruns. But Clyde Lewis has not been on the air in months. I know he's going through something health-wise. He's, Ryan Gable's very close with Clyde, works closely with him. And he's just, kept me lightly updated that he's dealing with one thing or another. But I was so excited to hear last night that Clyde Lewis called into John B. Wells' show. And I'm sitting there on the couch listening to John B. Wells and Clyde Lewis talk, and it was great. I don't know what's going on with Clyde. I wish him well. I pray for him. Prayed for him last night because this is his time, man. This was, all the. We have a great UFO disclosure season guest to bring on tonight. We're going to reconnect with Timothy Alberino after about 8 months or so. But it was Clyde Lewis, Ground Zero, in the middle of the UFO files, starting to leak out whether there's anything new in there or not. Whether we're just talking about psyops and managing of human perception or whatever the hell it is. This is like high time for him to be behind a microphone. It was great to hear with him with John B. Wells last night. I don't know how to listen to things that has to be that you can listen to John Wells on demand. Should definitely listen to that. It was a great conversation. So that was that. That was that. A good night overall. What are we going to do tonight, though? Well, like I said, we're going to be speaking with our good friend Timothy. He'll be showing up any moment. It's 7:08. He should be popping in sometime after 7:10. And then afterwards, I'd like to take your calls. I would like to keep an eye out for anything that you guys have as far as questions goes. I'll keep an eye on the super chats tonight, like throughout the beginning of the show, in case I can slip something in for you. And no matter, we'll be reading stuff afterwards. And then I might have some reels and time for your calls afterwards. And I think we're going to do a straight up joy scroll on film on the flip side tonight. That should be fun. That should be really fun. And I feel like it's a good night. I feel like it's going to be a really good night. Let me go into the chat room real quick, see how everybody's doing. Of course, lots of comments and lots of inside jokes. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, you have you have premiere emojis on YouTube. I suggest you have some fun. Let's see here. Shane B's in the chat. What's going on, everybody? I'm looking at everybody on the Twitch as well. Of course, we're pulling in all of our friends on Rumble, and it's going to be nice. Jimmy Church says Royal Orlean. I haven't heard a Jimmy Church show in a long time. I was actually never. I know of him, and I've seen his stuff around, but never got into it. Just scheduling wise, and that's not an indictment of the quality of his show. But I know of Jimmy Church. So, see what else we have. Good to see you guys. I'm just looking at the general chat right now because I don't do this very often, and I like to change it up from time to time. But that's all we have there. Now, I saw that Timothy Alberino was on Piers Morgan. I think this was today. Apparently, it's going to come out later on this week. I got to ask him about that up front. That would be interesting. But the big thing here is this. What we were fed all throughout April, just this rising, this cacophony of just noise from every direction. People saying what we're going to get from one file or another, one release or another, one tranche or another. And we're getting stuff like this. Representative Anna Paulina Luna, Matt Gaetz, the vice president himself. There was just a lot that was going on that was very biblically centered. And what I would like to do tonight is talk to Timothy about that, how central the Bible has been to the prepping of the public for this so far, which has got a lot of people very, very uncomfortable. And for good cause. And for good cause. Because what does that all mean? What does that all mean? I was talking to Tony Merkel a little bit earlier on today too about just what was going on with that whole the pastors and who was doing what and who was saying what. Apparently it wasn't really anything that crazy. Like there were government officials that were showing up and giving intel. I don't know where the hell that all started, but Tony Merkel, our conversations are our conversations, and nothing was really said there. He said everything is really open source, and that was what was going around. That somebody was just saying that, hey, make this a little bit more of a thing when you're behind the pulpit. Just to let people know that this stuff is going to be able to solidify your faith, not necessarily prepare them for a deviation from what defines their faith. So I think that we got caught up in a little bit of craziness right there too. Anyway, I got a lot of things to ask, and Timothy Alberino is the guy I want to ask those things of. So returning to the program tonight is Timothy Alberino, author, explorer, filmmaker, and one of the sharpest minds, connecting biblical scholarship, ancient history, and the modern mysteries of our world. Best known for his best-selling book, Birthright, which I had to go and flip through a little bit today just to get some reference points and where I wanted to approach certain questions. Timothy has traveled the globe, including years living in the Peruvian Amazon, investigating megalithic sites, face rippers and peelers, legends of giants, lost civilizations, and UFO phenomenon through especially a biblical lens. And he returns tonight. It's great to have you back, Tim. It feels like forever.
Hello, Frank. Very good to be with you again.
Yes, it is very nice. How's your entire year been so far? This is essentially like New Year's Day for you and I. Damn, we're in May.
Yeah, well, I've been very busy as of late, as you can imagine. There's quite a few things happening right now and trending on social media, and so I've been quite busy.
I know. I think it's the first thing I'll ask you is something that's kind of detached from the main thrust of tonight's show, and that is the Piers Morgan thing that I saw you announce. I think it's going to be released later on in the week. I mean, I didn't have you on in time to discuss what was a very hot topic a few months ago with the reports of a possible second Sphinx or something like that was beneath the surface of the first one. And I don't know if that's what this was all about, but you were up there with Zahi Hawass. And was this all about the Sphinx, or was this about something else?
I didn't really know what it was about, to be honest with you. I was contacted by one of Pierce's producers yesterday, and they asked me if I'd come on to talk about, I don't even remember what, to be honest with you, something about the pyramids. When she said that Pierce would be interviewing Zahi Hawass, the famed archaeologist, Egyptologist, and then I thought that Pierce was going to do a one-on-one with Zahi, and then he was going to have some of us commentators talk about the pyramids and Hawass and the whole situation. But instead, he actually had us interacting directly with Hawass, with Mr. Hawass, which I didn't expect that. And I took the opportunity to propose to Mr. Hawass that he facilitate me and my team going to Egypt, going to the pyramids with our state-of-the-art ground-penetrating radar antenna, which has the capability to penetrate 300 feet beneath the surface of the Earth and conduct a scan. And it operates off of a drone platform, so we don't even have to disturb the ground. We don't have to remove one single grain of sand. And I did it live, not live, but I did it, I made this proposition directly to Hawass on Piers Morgan's program. And I did that strategically so that the audience can see this kind of proposal in live time. And we'll see what happens. I mean, Hawass's reaction was, he actually responded quite favorably to the idea. He said he would be very interested to talk to me about it and so forth. And he said that Piers Morgan's people will get me in contact with him. And
sure,
well, that hasn't happened yet.
Sure.
But I'm asking people on social media. I'm going to post the clip when they release the episode, which I think is going to be on Friday. I'm going to post the clip and just keep hammering it, because I'm asking people to keep reposting this stuff every time I post about it, so that we can see if we can get a groundswell of attention behind this and force Hawass to accept the proposal.
If you were Mr. Beast, perhaps he would do. I remember he allowed Mr. Beast to
right.
swim around in the waters in the basement over there which I thought was pretty interesting. I said, "Oh, there's water in the basement of the pyramid, is it?" But yeah, go ahead.
And to be clear, I don't know. And I told him that we could deploy our technology and, to see if we can either validate or invalidate this SAR scan that they did, the satellite-based SAR scan, where they discovered the mega complex beneath the Khafre pyramid. And I don't know what's down there. I don't know if that data is accurate. I don't have a bone to pick here. I don't have a side, but I do have the technology. Me and my partner, Gary Haven, we have the technology. And like I said, we don't have to disturb a single grain of sand. So why not? Why not?
Are you talking about in particular the story that went viral in either 24 or 25 about how it seemed to be coiled pillars that was beneath 2025? So it was that story, because that kind of went away.
Yeah. Well, it's been floating around. It's allegedly a colossal underground complex was discovered beneath the pyramid of Khafre on the Giza plateau. It was discovered in 2025 by an Italian group of researchers, and they were using a satellite technology called a satellite platform technology called synthetic aperture radar, SAR. And allegedly, they discovered megastructures extending more than 2,000 feet beneath the surface of the pyramid of Khafre, and which potentially amounts to an underground city, is what we're talking about. And this included 8 massive pillars protruding from 2 massive cubic foundations, and it seems that there may be like a stairwell wrapping around these pillars or something, or a coil or something like that. And the discovery, of course, remains unverified. But everyone's saying, well, let's drill. Let's drill. Well, don't drill. Drilling is a dumb idea. What you need to do is deploy state-of-the-art GPR technology to verify the claim, and then with that GPR technology, you can localize the area. If you're going to drill, if you're going to excavate at all, then you can localize exactly where you want to excavate, so you're not just shooting in the dark. Because these satellite technologies, they give you a general idea of where things are, but you got to go in and pinpoint stuff afterward. So everyone's saying drill, drill, drill. And I've dealt with archaeological sites in Peru, not in Egypt, but I imagine it's much the same. You can't move one block, you can't move one rock without like getting five pieces of paper signed and certified and notarized and passed through the chain of the bureaucracy. And but we don't have to move anything. We don't have to touch the pyramid. So I didn't anticipate that I was going to get the opportunity to engage directly with Mr. Hawass, and that's what I used the opportunity to do.
He's
and
essentially.
We'll see what.
Don, so,
we'll see what comes of it.
Yeah. Well, he's essentially the he's the embodiment of all that paper, and it's crazy because I've seen him pop up all over the place, and the more I go back in time and listen to old media and old talk radio, and I hear him popping up from time to time, or I hear people referencing to him even back in the 1990s or something. Seems he's been a sketchy and sometimes reviled figure for now decades. And you think that after all this time, the pyramid industrial complex would get a different gatekeeper, because I don't know what kind of access you get. I hope you do, because I'd love to see you, I'd love to see you poke around with and all that play and employ all tight, because at least we would have some kind of confidence that the investigation would be an independent one. But that was pretty incredible, and it was a pretty good panel too. I mean, you and Michael Button, and of course Jimmy Corsetti. I'm a big fan of Jimmy Corsetti. I'd love to have all you guys on the show at once. But we'll talk about that real quick, because this is the good segue into everything else. The structure under Khafre, what we were all talking about just the possibility of it being true, was really it was the massive size of the chamber and the pillars. I think we're talking about things that were being measured in kilometers. So we are talking about something that's so massive that made everybody ask the most basic question: if this is true, what are we to say about the builders? Who were they? How massive were they?
If it's true, it rewrites history. Period. If it's true, it's going to be very difficult for Egyptologists to explain how dynastic Egyptians built that.
Yes,
it's actually going to be quite ridiculous. Actually, even to put forward that postulate that it was built by dynastic Egyptians. So it's going to force a conversation, a broader conversation about megaliths worldwide. And people are going to wonder what's under these other things as well, right? I've always contended that these megalithic complexes, many of them, are quite literally the tip of the iceberg. I can say that definitively as it pertains to the walls of Sacsayhuaman in Peru, in Cusco. We know that there's a vast underground complex beneath those walls. And there's been a whole situation unfolding there, very political, dynamic situation unfolding in Cusco that I'm kind of involved with in an ancillary way. And but there's, it would be unprecedented. It wouldn't mean automatically that like the pyramids were built by aliens or something like that. It would just force us to rethink the prehistoric world.
At the very least.
Because that's what this would point to. This wouldn't point to the dynastic Egyptians. We know what they were capable of, and we have a pretty good idea what they were not capable of. Let me just remind the audience that the Egyptians, when they built palaces, and not just the Egyptians, but many people in the ancient Near East, when they would undertake these monumental building projects, oftentimes they would contract with the Phoenicians, certainly to provide some of the building materials, but not just to provide the famous cedars of Lebanon, but also to lend their expertise. Certainly Solomon did this. There's this pervasive myth, and it's a myth, it's a Jewish myth, that Solomon, used his magical ring to control demons to build the temple. That's nonsense. That's a myth. And I think that myth was created to obfuscate the reality, which is that Solomon tagged his buddy, the king of Tyre. And that king was, the king of Tyre was, the king of Tyre, whose name was Hiram. And he was the king of the Phoenicians, of the Phoenician city Tyre. And it was Hiram and his artificers, also another Hiram, a famous Hiram to the Freemasons, Hiram Abiff, not to be confused with King Hiram. Hiram Abiff was part Hebrew, part Phoenician. And they came, and they were the ones who did a lot of the work at the Temple of Solomon. Essentially, the Temple of Solomon wasn't built by demons. It was built by Phoenicians. And so my point here is that the great kings of the Bronze Age were hiring the Phoenicians to do their masonry and to oversee a lot of their works. Now, I'm not saying that the Phoenicians built the pyramids. What I'm trying to illustrate here is if the ancient Egyptians were capable of building the Giza pyramids, which maybe they were, then why wasn't everybody hiring the ancient Egyptians to build everything instead of the Phoenicians? And there's no way, none, zero possibility that if that structure, anything like that mega complex exists beneath the Pyramid of Khafre, that the Egyptians built it. So we're looking at a paradigm shift, if it's true. Now, there's a big if, okay? Nobody knows if it's true. I've working with radar myself, ground penetrating radar. I'm not a technician, but we've had problems using our technology because sometimes you get reflections and you get interference, and you have to be very careful with reflections and interference. And if there's water, I don't know with the SAR technology, but at least with ground penetrating radar, if you have water, it can cause some problems, especially salt water. And you can get some refraction, and you can get some, well, you're always going to get refraction, but you can get some mirroring. And as I said, the interference patterns. So I don't know what's under those pyramids, but man, we can probably find out if Mr. Hawass would facilitate the project.
Well, as I've talked with others in the past about these things, a mutual friend of ours, Michael Collins, as well, and a few others, on any kind of curiosity, that natural curiosity that's still alive within, the archaeological ranks, paleontologists, whatever the hell it is. It seems like a lot of curiosity is at a low point right now, and that there's a lot of gatekeeping going on. And I often wonder what the profit model really even is about. Is it all about pride? Is there
prestige? It's prestige, and it's funding for projects. Zahi Hawass is a very imperious individual, very arrogant. And I think, like you said, he's representative. He's sort of a poster boy for the problem in archaeology. Sometimes people refer to this as big archaeology. We figured it all out. We know what's going on here. They don't want surprises. They don't want narrative adjustments. And yeah, they'll modify little things. Sure, no problem. But the big picture stuff, they don't want to get the apple cart, so to speak. This was the problem with, I know we're going far afield here, but this was one of the major problems at the country here in America, when the mounds, in the Indian mounds, and in other places as well, You had the director of ethnology at the Smithsonian, Powell.
Well, you're breaking up a little bit. You're breaking up
I
a little
think I
bit.
cut out for a minute. Can you hear me? It's very, very windy here.
Yeah. You were talking about you went to North America talking about the mounds, and then you said,
yeah.
It's still a little choppy. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes. You're back right now. I don't know if the wind is going to kick up again, though.
Yeah, it's like we're under a wind advisory right now, so
okay.
it wouldn't.
You sound pretty solid right now. Go ahead.
All right, we'll try it again. So I was talking about Colonel Powell. You heard me say that, right?
No.
Yeah. So Colonel Powell was the director he was a director at the Smithsonian Institution, the director of ethnology, and Powell.
Here we go again.
I don't know. This keeps breaking up.
Yeah, it does. Well, okay. Well, you know what? Then let's see. I know switching subjects is not going to stop the wind, but I want to also try to find a way to bridge the gap, because we're talking about the protective film around what we have to go by with the story of the world, paradigms that can shift but are being held in place. And everything we were talking about on the Egypt side of things, what you were discussing on Piers Morgan today, that we'll all be able to see publicly in a couple of days, really does tie in with the UFO files to a degree. To a great degree. But as far as the revelation itself, let's just jump to that for a second. I haven't seen any of your other interviews. I'm sure you've been doing a lot of them lately. I always see you popping up places. But generally speaking, I don't know how much we're going to be getting in totality, but what were you expecting from all of this?
Exactly what was released.
Okay.
I was informed the night before by somebody in Congress that the release was going to be at first quite underwhelming. They were going to release release the low-hanging fruit to begin with, but as we progressed, that they would be releasing more spectacular material. That's what I was told. And supposedly the releases are going to happen about every 2 weeks. So that's not it. Some people are under the impression like that's it. That's not what the White House is planning. The White House is planning on doing these releases every 2 weeks, and they're going to get increasingly, from what I hear, increasingly more significant. Now, you have to understand that, this low-hanging fruit, a lot of this stuff is material that was in the possession of AARO, the Pentagon's investigative body for anomalous phenomena. AARO, as I've said on your show, I'm sure, in the past, was a dog and pony show. It was never a serious effort to
We're still here, everybody. Don't worry. We are still here. It's the wind in the north. I wonder if all that's coming my way. It's going to be a really rainy day all day tomorrow. But it's not like Chicago,
Easy files at the
okay, Timothy, you just got cut off. You talking about AARO? I think that's what you just. I'm sorry. The last 25 seconds, it was silence. So, if you want to start, I want to say start from the beginning of all that. But if you can nutshell what you just said over the last 25 seconds, that'd be great.
What was the last thing you heard me say?
You were presenting us with that organization. What was it called? AARO. AARO. That's where you left off. You were teeing that up.
I was just saying that AARO has always been a dog and pony show. It's
yes.
the Pentagon's Office for Investigating Unidentified Anomalous Activity. And AARO was really the purpose of AARO is to dissuade further inquiry at the congressional level. into the phenomenon. I know that. Now, that's not the stated purpose, but that's what the purpose of Arrow is. And so Arrow had to cough up some of what it's been holding on to. Nothing really remarkable there. NASA, I think some of the most impressive files came from NASA. NASA released a file that concerned one of the Apollo missions in which you see what appears to be a UFO off in the distance. There's not supposed to be anything up there. There's not supposed to be any lights. Now you can't, like if it's a NASA photo from the moon, you can't claim that that's a flock of seagulls. You can't say that that's swamp gas. You can't say that that's an airplane. Do you still have me?
I do. I am listening to you.
Okay, good. Yeah, I don't know whenever I'm going to disappear again here, but so there's definitely some interesting stuff, and people were very upset about it. This is it. This is all we're getting. No, this is the beginning.
Yes.
And I hope that what I've been told is true, and I hope that this stuff gets more spectacular as we move forward. Now, let me clear something up here. You always got the psyop narrative that floats around on the internet every time something significant happens. It doesn't really matter what it is anymore. The internet is obsessed with psyop. So the idea that people have in their heads is they're conflating this effort for disclosure that's happening now with things that have happened in the past. Well, there's a big difference. This push for disclosure is unprecedented. This is a presidential directive, okay? And it's mainly President Donald Trump, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, and the director of the FBI, Kash Patel. And there's some others as well, some other agencies, Tulsi Gabbard, the DNI, director of DNI. And these people are operating in good faith. But that doesn't mean that they know anything. That doesn't mean that they're read into any of this. The President of the United States does, as I said a long time ago on the Steve Bannon show, when I predicted that Trump would be a disclosure president, last May, I predicted that on War Room with Steve Bannon. And he was surprised to hear that the President of the United States does not have the need to know. Most presidents are not read into this stuff. Neither are the secretaries of defense or now the secretary of war. They're not read in on these programs because these positions are transitory. These programs exist in the bowels of what I described as the dumb state, referring to deep underground military bases. The craft, the experimental craft, the crash recovery stuff, the bodies and so forth, these things are housed in secure facilities, special access programs that nobody in Congress has access to. So what President Trump and what Pete Hegseth, Secretary Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, Kash Patel, and the rest of them are doing is the best they can with what limited information they have. And what I was told, and then Trump actually came out and confirmed this, was that they were going to release as much as they could. Of course, they're not going to release like highly classified stuff that pertains to national security interests. They're not going to release that, so don't expect that. You're not going to see alien bodies. You're not going to see definitive proof of extraterrestrial life. Right? So get that out of your mind. That's not going to happen. But what they're going to do is they're going to release as much as they can, be as transparent as they can. And then what I've been told is the idea is they're going to allow the American people to draw the right conclusions. That's the terminology that I was told. Draw the right conclusions. And what are the right conclusions? We're not alone. There's an alien presence. We've recovered their craft and bodies. Those are the conclusions. Now, everyone assumes that the President of the United States has been read in on this stuff, but like I said before, if Trump has been read in, he's been read in on a surface level. Trump is actually quite uninterested in this question, if you listen to him. He wants the truth on it. He would like to know. He wants to be the disclosure president. He's not even sure if he should take it seriously yet.
It sounds like he's putting all the kids in the back of the station wagon and bringing them to Wally World. That's what it sounds like. Like when, as far as you said, his level of personal interest. It sounds when I hear official messaging from the government being, "Hey, we're going to give you some really interesting stuff, and the public can decide what to make of it." That right there is a little bit of wind out of my sails because I'm like, you know what? The whole point of all this stuff is all the shit up in the air, whether it has a tie to Earth-based technology or not, is simply unidentified. And we would like somebody to just finally identify stuff and not leave it up to interpretation.
Not going to happen. Well, not going to happen. Trump doesn't know what it is. Pete Hegseth doesn't know what it is. Kash Patel doesn't know what it is. The generals who know what it is, the generals who have the authority and the knowledge base to brief on this are not going to say anything. They're the only ones who could inform the president. Tulsi Gabbard doesn't know what this phenomenon is. Now, you know, within all of those offices and the various people who work for them, there's a plethora of ideas, of opinions. You know, some people think they're extraterrestrial. Some people think, like you mentioned, Anna Paulina Luna, interdimensional. Some people think they're demons, like J.D. Vance. There's all kinds of ideas that are kicked around, but the reality is these people have not been read in. Okay, and I can tell you that for certain with at least some of these folks, they've not been read in. By the way, Congressman Eric Burleson, Congressman Tim Burchett, Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, they have not been read in. Now, they have been shown some material in skiffs. They have been informed and advised by people in the intelligence community and people in the government, at the Pentagon. But the generals who know, the generals who aren't speculating, the generals who deal with the reality on a day-to-day basis, who allocate the funds into the special access programs, they're not talking. And I know because I actually talked to someone who's worked with them, and they don't want to reveal this because we're so far along. I mean, we are decades into this thing. They don't believe that the American people have the need to know. And so you have this knowledge chasm, right, between the guys that are read into the programs at the Pentagon. And I asked a contact of mine the other day who worked at the Pentagon, who was briefed by these generals and who had eyes on some of the special access programs. I asked him, how many people at the Pentagon do you think are read in? And he thought about it for a minute. Now, there's thousands of people who work at the Pentagon. He thought about it for a minute, and he said 20, about 20 people. Okay, so extrapolate that out to the intelligence community at large, right? You only got a handful of people who actually know anything in the intelligence community. And when I say a handful, you know, there might be 20 to 100 people in the intelligence community. I would wager to guess there's literally zero at the White House. I don't think anybody at the White House has read into anything. It's transitory. The White House is for show. It's not the permanent bureaucracy. It's not the deep state, the dumb state. That's the show. That's the theater. The White House is the theater. So Trump is acting, in my opinion, Trump is acting in good faith. This was, by the way, this was kind of a brilliant political move on Trump's part because the midterms are coming. And Trump needed something he could deliver before the midterms. This is an easy deliverable by the Trump administration. We're going to release the alien files. Here they come. Make of them what you will, right? Promise made, promise kept. I think it was quite a tactical move. And I don't think this is about a
little bit of a hiccup right there. We'll give him a second. We're on a good run. We're on a good run right there. Hold on, he'll be back in a second. I don't know. It could be while Timothy is coming back in and we reconnect. Yeah, I guess you can consider it a promise made, a promise kept. Whether that's going to move the needle or not in the midterms, we'll have to see. I think getting the gas under $5 again nationwide would be pretty good. But hold on. Okay, here he is. He's back. Okay, so you were talking about good faith, promise made, promise kept, midterm, and then you shifted to something else. I have a couple more questions for you, but I want you to finish that thought.
I was just saying I don't think that this is a psyop. I don't think this is Project Bluebeam. I don't think this is a deception. I think this was a tactical political move. And And I know that the congressmen and women who are working on this are doing it in good faith. I know that for a fact. And so, is there a deception in this? Is this community?
Okay. So there's a question there at the end. Could there be deception buried in this? I guess we'll get around to that in just a second. My whole thing here, until we reestablish connection with Tim. Timothy, are you back? Okay. My whole thing here is, I actually see that demeanor coming from Donald Trump. I see him essentially having his. Timothy's back right now. I don't know. I'm getting like a slideshow over here. It's so pixelated. Oh wait, I think we got audio now. There, okay, he's back. All right, so you're right there. You're at the end. You were, I guess, setting yourself up to answer the question: could there be deception buried in the mix of all this stuff outside of this being a generally good faith proposition? So go ahead with that, Timothy, if you still have the connection. Okay, well, we roll with it. That's what we're going to do, because that's what we do on this show in every iteration of it over the last 20 years. We roll with it. And when I was a little bit younger, I used to get mad. And now there's just no need to get mad anymore. Here he is. Okay, Timothy's back. You hear me? Okay,
bad timing for
I know. This is the first time, Tim, that you're stuck again. This is the first time that we've ever had a connection problem, and of course, it is on the call where so many conversations of the past are actually culminating now into something that is actionable and mainstream. So, of course, we're having a hard time carrying on a conversation. It only makes sense. Go on again. All right. Well, as I was saying, it does seem like Donald Trump's attention is placed somewhere else. Like he has other things that he wants to delegate this out, and who knows what kind of impact that has later on in the year. Tim, before you were cut off, you were setting yourself up to answer the question of what kind of deception could be in the mix of what is otherwise a good faith proposition of disclosure. Go ahead and finish up with that.
Oh, I was just saying that, I'm sure some faction is anxious to spin this in a particular way, but I don't know. I mean, deception. Everyone out there is all worried about deception. That's why they're all screaming aliens or demons, because they're afraid people are going to be deceived. But that's not really a biblical concept, because the Bible says that if it were possible, even the elect would be deceived, and that's if you're talking about the great deception. So I'm not too concerned about people being deceived. I think plenty of people are already deceived. I mean, from my viewpoint, anybody who rejects the gospel of Christ is already completely and utterly deceived. So I'm not too worried about deception, but I'm cautioning, like, fellow Christians who are out there, with this aliens or demons hysteria. I'm cautioning us collectively to be very measured and to be humble, to display some humility here. We don't know what the heck's going on. We're certainly not read in. It's a bit premature to be out there saying with such confidence that you know exactly what these things are. We don't even know how many freaking things are out there. We don't even know how many factions there are. We don't know what in the world is going on, except for the fact that we have a legacy program. We've been, involved in the recovery and reverse engineering of technology, alien technology, and I'm just cautioning patience, humility. Let's wait and see what unfolds. And we got plenty of deceptions floating around already.
I have some questions on that in particular, and I want to get to that as soon as I ask you something else about the kind of messaging that we've been getting from said congressmen and people before that you were bringing up. You're bringing up, Trump and Gabbard and all that stuff. But earlier on in our talks, we talk about people, the work of people like Bud Hopkins, Dr. David Jacobs. Those are the names that you and I have brought up time and time again in the past. And not only just to hit on things like the abduction phenomenon in general, but specifically hybridization theories. Now, that is the kind of hype that we've been getting around disclosure, which has been most fascinating to me. Not that we were going to get, grainy radar and infrared footage or anything else like that. It was that in the months and then, of course, the weeks leading up to now what is the first tranche of releases, people, former and current members of Congress, Matt Gaetz was one of them. You were talking about Vice President and others who have gone right down the biblical road to talk about whether or not these things are demonic entities that we're dealing with.
But just to interject, Vance did say he doesn't know anything about this topic. He hasn't been told anything. He was just spitballing from a Catholic perspective.
Absolutely, but a couple of others, I think Matt Gaetz, they actually intimated they were keyed in on there being a biological hybridization program element to what we may see. I mean, that's a pretty big carrot to dangle. I mean, that's big.
Well, there is I mean, as I've said many times on your show, the abduction phenomenon is real, and the objective of the abduction phenomenon is a hybrid breeding program between human beings and these entities, these non-human entities, and they are creating advanced human-alien hybrids, denominated hybrids by Dr. David Jacobs. In fact, I just did an interview with a couple of gentlemen, the O'Leary brothers, who have one of the most remarkable abduction stories I've ever heard. On my YouTube channel. And I get contacted every single day by abductees, and the stories are always the same. So that phenomenon is ongoing, and it's physical, and it's biological. To some extent, it's genetic. So there's an end game here for at least one of these factions. There's an end game. And as far as I can tell, that end game is, in the words of Dr. Jacobs, planetary acquisition. Now, that's not a deception. That's a threat. That's a conquest. And it's a conquest by stealth. And there's not many of us out here who are warning about it, but it is happening. And so I don't know if Gaetz is referring to that, the abduction phenomenon, but there's another thing that I have suspected for a long time is the case, and that I'm hearing word of from sources. It appears that we may have our own breeding program. We may be attempting to create an intermediary species between human beings and gray aliens, like human beings doing this. This is separate from the abduction phenomenon. The abduction phenomenon is being perpetrated by gray aliens. Actually, more specifically by the insectulins, the mantids, who control the grays. And our program that I don't know if it exists. I suspect it does. But our hybridization program has a very specific objective as well. What's the objective? We have a problem when we interact with alien craft. The problem is that their control mechanisms are not manual. They don't have manual controls like we do, like in our vehicles and even in our most advanced craft, our most advanced aircraft. They have a mind-machine control mechanism. They interface directly with their technology telepathically, and the Greys are much more proficient at this than we are. Now, there are some human beings that we've been trying to use, people who are predisposed to psionics, to psychic capabilities, to interact with the beings, but also to try and interact with their technology and fly, with limited success, to fly the craft telepathically. But it's, as I said, limited success. So I suspect, and this is kind of let's call it informed suspicion, that we are attempting to hybridize human and gray aliens to create an intermediary pilot, so to speak, that is under our control, as opposed to under the control of the grays, and has the capability to operate the craft. And I think that is what Matt Gaetz is referring to. I suspect. I haven't talked to Gaetz myself, but I think that's what he's referring to. I'm going to reiterate, I don't know if that's true. I just suspect it's true based on some things I've seen.
Well, I mean, a couple of, well, first thing comes to mind is a message that I got on this show maybe about a month or maybe 2 months or so and change, that there was a theory that that human beings, if we wanted to properly pilot alien craft, human men would require foreskin, and that our circumcision in that the foreskin was actually an interface that so many guys can't fly these things if they wanted to. You're saying it's mental. Some people think,
sure that wasn't a joke?
I don't know. It could be.
No, I've never heard anything like that. No, it's all telepathic. The control is telepathic. The interface is telepathic. The communication with the beings is telepathic. Gray aliens are one faction. I think there certainly are more. Eric Davis, the physicist who's been working on some of these projects behind the scenes and has had some level of access. He denominated 4 races in a meeting on Capitol Hill with some of the congressmen. Burleson asked him, what are the different species of aliens you think we're interacting with? And he named 4. Really what he named are 3 factions, but these are the 4 he named. The Greys, the Mantids, that's one faction. So we're going to call that one faction, the Greys and Mantids. The Nordics, and the Reptilians. Mm-hmm. Now, that may sound ridiculous to people, but everybody, I'm telling you, everybody I talk to behind the scenes, whistleblowers, military people, they all affirm that. They all affirm it. When I ask them about those 3 groups, yes. And so I think there's at least 3 groups in play here. Again, I'm combining the Greys and the Mantids because that's one faction. Well, some people like the O'Leary brothers and many other abductees have seen gray aliens, insectolins, the mantids, and the reptilians all in the same environment. And there's a hierarchy. The small grays are subjugated to the larger grays, the tall grays. The tall grays are subjugated to the mantids, and the reptilians are subjugated to the mantids, the insectolins. So at the top of this food chain, it looks like the insectolins are really the organic species, if we can use that terminology. And I know people are going to get upset and say, aliens equal demons. They're going to type that in the chat. They probably already have 15 times. I'm not looking at it. But this is a highly, highly complex situation with a lot of material evidence, with a lot of interaction. And as it was conveyed to me the other day by somebody who's had eyes on the projects, it is so complicated, so mind-blowingly bizarre, the reality, the actual reality, when you're read in fact, this individual told me he knows several individuals who committed suicide after being read in. So it is so mind-blowingly bizarre, incomprehensible, that the American people just couldn't, they wouldn't even know how to digest that kind of information, let alone be able to parse and comprehend the intricacies involved. So that's where we are. That's where we are.
Is there any other place? Is there any other source of that evidence that you've been able to pair up with all of these testimonies of people who have been abducted? I understand that once that sample size gets into the thousands and tens of thousands, if these
millions.
things are if they're being repeated, then obviously that's as good as anything you can get. But there is also psychological aspects to, like, I think about that movie The Fourth Kind, how and then you think about MK Ultra and how a mind can be broken.
Abduction has nothing to do with any of that. I can just tell you, abduction has nothing to do with MK Ultra, the CIA. Now, has the CIA used the abduction phenomenon to perpetrate their own abductions and pretend they're aliens? Right? Probably, but it's like if this is human driven, the abduction phenomenon, then you're in a Santa Claus situation. How does Santa Claus deliver toys all around the world at the same time to millions of children all around the world,
right,
on his magical sleigh, right? It's the same thing. How does the CIA abduct millions of people all around the world, you know, who have witnesses, all kinds of witnesses involved. Their neighbors see them being abducted sometimes. This is the CIA really Santa Claus here? I mean, no is the answer. I don't care what Dr. Stephen Greer says. That's bullcrap. And there's not many of us out here talking about alien abduction, but it's at the heart of this thing. I know that wasn't your intent to talk about abduction, but it's the core. It's the core of the phenomenon. I don't care so much about the craft. Okay, great technology, advanced technology, telepathic interface, great. Biological beings, very interesting. What do they want?
Foreskin.
What's the objective?
They want foreskin. They want the foreskin back.
Well, if that were the case, then let's just put it this way: that's a lot better scenario than what they appear to want, which is planet Earth.
Let's go back to the centerpiece of your work as an author, Birthright. That rush toward AI transhumanism. I mean, that's an example of a human endeavor to essentially create chimeric existence. Of course, that's a little bit more of a cybernetic existence than a biological hybrid there. But we've heard people talking about, fish tanks, with Alex Jones being one of the more famous examples of, receiving intel about fish tanks of animal human hybrids just, being meddled with in one deep underground military base or another. And I always assumed that stuff like that would be going on. How would we know that if some kind of chimeric beast whose existence will be, how would we know if we are presented with some kind of a chimeric beast in public, who was the progenitor? How would we know if it was alien or if it was something that was done a mile and a half underground in Denver?
Well, I think the first clue would be the technology. I mean, we don't have the technology of gray aliens. We don't have it. We have some alien reproduction vehicles, ARVs. We have some conventional craft that's incorporated unconventional components. We have our own, what whistleblower Jacob Barber describes as the 8-gon, which looks like a flying saucer, but it looks like it's segmented, right? It's got like these 8 segments to it. That's why they call it the 8-gon. This is what Michael Herrera likely saw in Indonesia. And so we've got our toys. We've got our reverse engineered toys. But they're vastly inferior to the technology of gray aliens. And so, this idea that we're creating chimeric creatures who are going to be able to display the technological capabilities of gray aliens is exceedingly far-fetched to me. I mean, these things are so advanced. These beings, they're so advanced in their technology that's it's in the words of Arthur C. Clarke, it's indistinguishable from magic. Mm. So, I know that there's all kinds of gymnastics going on right now on social media. You've got different camps. You've got your atheist, agnostic types who are, just very materialistic people. They're coming from a materialistic worldview rather. They think, oh, maybe aliens exist, but they can't get here, right? Because they're working with Einsteinian physics. They can't get here. They're too far away. They wouldn't want to visit the planet Earth anyway, blah, blah, blah. And so they're out there trying to debunk stuff. They're out there trying to avoid an inconvenient reality, right? That there's an alien presence and has been for decades and all the government interaction with it. Then you've got your super spiritual spiritualists out there, who believe that this is all the Galactic Federation, right? Our space brothers. and it's all astral. You know, the abduction is just astral, and they're trying to elevate our consciousness. They're trying to raise our vibration, and the evildoers are the humans in this scenario. There's no evil aliens. That's Dr. Stephen Greer, okay, and his group and others. Then you've got people in the Christian camp who are just labeling everything's a demon. Everything's a demon. It's all demons. And everybody is scrambling to circumvent the nuts and bolts reality of this phenomenon. And so they're already creating these narratives. Well, if we're presented with if a gray alien presents itself or whatever, it's not an extraterrestrial. No, can't be that. It has to be, like you said, like a hybrid that we made to deceive people, or an interdimensional thing or whatever. It's like, okay, fine. But why can't it be an extraterrestrial? Like, why is that off the table? Everybody I talk to behind the scenes, most of them say, well, we don't really know what this is, but there are certainly extraterrestrial components to this thing. And some of these guys just tell me these things are extraterrestrials. And in fact, I'm going to be exceedingly careful here, but one individual told me, who's been briefed by generals at the Pentagon. I asked him, I said, so these generals who briefed you, are any of these guys Christians? He said, oh yeah, I can confirm that. Yeah, several of these guys are very committed Christians. I said, okay, and they're totally they have some oversight over elements of this phenomenon, like the legacy program. And he said, yep, yeah, they're read in, and they have some oversight over some of these things. I said, okay, so here they are, Christians, generals, they're read in, and yet they're at the same time they're dealing with the realities of this phenomenon, not the speculation, the realities of the phenomenon. And I asked him, how do they bridge that chasm between their Christian faith and the realities of the phenomenon? Like, how do they bridge that chasm? Do they just think these things are demons? Is that how they do it? And he sort of chuckled and he said, no. I said, well, what do they think about it? He said they would agree with you.
It's a mixed reality.
These are no. He said they would agree with you, meaning me. These are non-human entities, non-human people. They're biological. They have nuts and bolts technology. Of course, I use the word nuts and bolts as a kind of a metaphor, because the craft don't have any nuts and bolts. Obviously, they look like they're molded from singular material. The alien ones, and so there's a diversity of opinions out there, and the guys that are actually working with this stuff, who are read into the programs, they're not trying to circumvent the realities of this thing, but everybody else seems to be trying to do that. And I just don't understand why. Like, just let it be what it is. So I'm not afraid of being deceived. And I think I've got a pretty good firewall against deception. And it's nothing special. I just believe in the gospel of Christ. And anything contrary to that is a lie. So, I don't know. I'm you're catching me here at the end of a week of
oh no,
conversations on all of these things, and all of this, the disclosure stuff, and the pastor briefing stuff, and all the different stories that have been swirling around on social media. And I'm kind of getting fatigued with the whole thing, to be honest.
I can tell.
And I'm not saying, I'm happy to talk to you here. I'm not saying I'm not complaining that I'm on your show right now. I'm kind of getting fatigued. Like why do we have such a hard time with this topic? It's why does it got to be a psyop? Like, why does everything got to be a psyop? Why does everything got to be a demon? Why does everything got to be a distraction? I'm just very wary with
Well,
the
you know
whole
what,
thing.
Timothy, this is I'm weary too a lot. And this is part of the reason why I do a lot less. I have to pick and choose the days where I do current events or anything that smacks of mainstream news, because it's the same kind of fatigue, and you really don't get anywhere. And these topics used to be places where we can go to let the mind run wild. And that same kind of rigidity,
Right.
almost political rigidity, has made its way over here as well. And so I understand what you mean, and this is something that we have drawn up many times in the past. So I didn't want to really hover over that as much as I'm thinking, just situationally. Like, have you given any thought to how humanity would be impacted on the level of faith if we came face to face with an advanced race of beings, let's say reptilians from Alpha Draconis or something like that, and they simply don't have any shared view on life after death or creation or anything that we have learned through Genesis on up, and where a lot of people will get a little bit wary is if all this comes down to one thing, and it usually does for people who like to make it political. Does this pluralize the creation story? Does it dilute the Christian salvation arc? Because if it splinters, especially Christianity for some people, by creating doubt, where you have maybe like this Old Testament God of reimagined as aliens, and especially like the Jewish Messiah that's supposedly still coming via these beings. I've seen people talking about this a lot too. Then maybe Christians, people, maybe someone who are now a little bit more grounded in their faith, start feeling, do we miss the real story? Does faith erode into apostasy or synchronism? That's the other thing there too, which is, I mean, really, go ahead.
In some ways, the question is irrelevant. Like, it doesn't really matter, because it's going to be what it is. The phenomenon is going to be what it is. And if you have faith in Christ and you believe in the gospel, then you're going to hold to that faith, no matter what is shown to us or said or whatever. Just like the early church when they were put in the Colosseum and told to renounce their faith or face the jaws of the lions, and they had to make a decision. I'm going to continue to proclaim my faith in Christ and even unto death. The equation doesn't change. The theological equation doesn't change. There's, as I said before, there's plenty of people who are completely, utterly deceived right now. They don't need aliens. So I'm not worried. I'm not as worried about this deception narrative, or falling for some. I'm not over here like building a landing pad to receive the aliens and embrace them and join an alien cult. I just deal in the real, okay? So I embrace the complexity of this thing. I see I have some insight into the realities of this thing, and I just accept what it is, and while simultaneously maintaining my faith in Christ.
It's definitely a much bigger year than we thought it was going to be on this front, and I'm glad that after all of the ground that we have laid over the last 5, 6, 7 years that we've been doing shows, I forget how long it has actually been at this point, that we're now able to actually hold it up and juxtapose it against something that is coming directly from where you'd have to imagine all the biggest and baddest bodies are being buried. So I mean, this will be coming out still over. You said every one release every couple of weeks or so. I hope that we're able to link back up and get back on the air for at least even just a half hour add-on whenever we start getting into the big stuff, the paradigm shifting stuff, the 2 kilometers beneath Kafre kind of paradigm shifting stuff. So that's what I'm hoping.
I assume I'm back. I heard a big gust of wind, and I thought, I'm going to freeze. And I think that's what happened, right?
Isn't it crazy?
Yeah, we'll have to pick a better day for a live stream next time when there's not a wind advisory. Neither of us knew that, obviously. But yeah, just to summarize, I don't know what the last thing you heard me saying was, but I was just saying I can embrace the complexity of the phenomenon, whatever it happens to be, and maintain my faith in Christ. There's no conflict here. What's the difference in my mind if you have human liars? If let's put it in these terms, if there's an extraterrestrial being who disembarks from a flying saucer and begins to contradict the tenets of my faith in Christ, then all that amounts to, for me, is an extraterrestrial liar. Doesn't change any theological equations, right? So yes, but I just wanted to make that clear because I didn't know when I froze.
No, you got all that in, thankfully.
Okay, good. So I'd be happy to come back, and this is an ongoing thing. I hope, I expect we're going to see some more releases, and this isn't going anywhere. This isn't going anywhere. So I applaud President Trump and Secretary Pete Hegseth and Director Kash Patel. I know they're losing favor with a lot of people right now, but no one else has ever done this. So no other administration has even attempted to do anything like this. So this is unprecedented. It may not be what people want, but we need to appreciate the moment in which we're living. It's not a nothing burger. Obama didn't do it. Biden certainly didn't do it. So anyway,
well,
thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. It's been great to catch up with you again. And like I said, it's only just beginning. So we'll wait for some big things to slap us in the face and say, hey, Timothy, what's going on? Do you have 15 minutes in between all these gigantic show appearances to just give us your thoughts on one thing or another? That would be wonderful. And in the meantime, is there anything else going on you want to promote? Do you have any big trips, any events, anything coming out that you want to pull some attention to?
Well, I've got my members community where we really dive deep into these topics and really get into the intricacies of all of this. So people want to try and figure out, if you're happen to be a Christian and you're trying to navigate these waters, there's a lot of material, live stream stuff, Q&A stuff, all kind of material. I've got great people in my members community, very, very interesting people. And so there's that. So I always like to point people to the Alberinoanalysis.com, or you can just type in Alberinoanalysis.com if you're interested in that. There's a couple of
well, until he comes back, the Alberinoanalysis.com. That's where you can get into his community over there. I'm telling you, one hell of a night for the wind to be screwing with everything. But we should be able to. Tim, you there? No, it's not really him. It's not. It looks like him, but it's not. It's a decoy. Yes, Tim. What? He's shocked. He looks shocked. I tell you. Anyway, okay. Alberinoanalysis.com. It would be a good, if you've never read Birthright or anything else that he's published, I think that it'd be a good time to do that. Of course, he just put out that joint published work on Enoch not too long ago, and I guess that's just going to be the end of the call. I don't know. We got everything in, and he's having problems over there, but we managed to pull this off. A nice hour. First time we've spoken all year. And now I'll turn it over to you guys. I really will. I have not seen what's going on in the chat rooms. We have a good amount of people watching, and I'm sure many more will be watching this after the fact. I can understand. I understand what kind of a battle of narratives this is. So for Timothy to say he's exhausted about this particular thing, I get it. I know that wasn't anything personal, because that's where we are right now. This is something that perhaps some people would have held that belief back, 30, 35 years ago or something like that. But right now, like I said, the political rigidity of, and I would say religious rigidity, in the way that people get very religious about a lot of things. Religious about politics, religious about climate change, when it becomes something that there is a visceral reaction and an emotional clinging to something, an uncompromising kind of a cling, then you start getting into something that's I believe religious rigidity. And even the fun things that we used to do together, like talk about UFOs and the weird things people have seen out there, they have become a little rigid. Sure. So I understand that. But I do want to know what you guys think about these things. I really do. You know, all of that stuff about pastors that were being kind of corralled and urged to talk to their congregations about this, prepare for this, was not, from what I understand, was not about being able to nudge people in one way or in one direction or another. It was actually to be able to fortify them in their positions, in their faith, and just let them know what's coming. Because, well, whether you have your pastor telling you, hey, it's coming and these things are real that we have to contend with, at least the stories are, the technology, I don't know, some unidentified things are being identified. But if you're getting into alien biologics, you're talking about bodies. You're talking about hybrid programs. So that's actually where this is going to go. If they're going to serve it up to us, whether you're going to believe it or not, if they go to that extreme, if we are going to that level of X-Files kind of, plot summary or plot device, that kind of a direction, then damn, man. I mean, there's a lot there. How would humanity, perhaps not you, but you think about billions. There's not 8 billion people on the planet. I don't believe it. But there's at least a few billion people on the planet. And of those few billion people, most of them, the majority of them, are very impressionable. And they cave to coercion. They will wear the masks. They will walk 6 feet apart. They will make sure that when they go down the frozen food aisle at Food Emporium, that they're all going in where they're going one way, because two-way traffic is highly infectious. I mean, I guess that would be an example of people who are obedient and don't allow any outside information or common sense to sink in, and you can approach that from however many directions as you like, because I guess it can work both ways. But, what impact would that have on faith? Especially since we, as a culture, it looks like we're rekindling our faith. You see a rekindling of faith across the culture. It's starting with the younger generations and hopefully moving on up, or at least it's going to wash through as the generations wash through and people die and new people are born, and there's a new culture of parenting out there and education. But the impact, the level of faith, if we finally come face to face with an advanced race of beings, and they simply don't have any shared view, they don't know what you're talking about when you bring up the Bible. What would that do? You're going to be frustrated. Guys, I'm being hypothetical about this too. This is a question that's been asked many times about about how the world would be impacted in open forum conversation. If you could be hypothetical about it, what would that do? Timothy just told you what he would be like. Oh, okay. Well, I'm confronting a reptilian deceiver at this point, or somebody who's just lying or just out of the loop. If an intergalactic civilization is able to travel here, is able to discover us and travel here from a distant point in the galaxy, they're able to find us, a needle in a haystack, and they are advanced enough to come here, who are we to tell them that we are the special people? That's what it comes down to. A lot of people faced with that proposition would actually start doubting themselves. Am I really a special? Am I really made in the image of God? You may not be that person that would ever have that shaken, but somebody who would be like, oh shit. If I'm really talking to a representative from a far off intergalactic civilization, and there is some kind of just some kind of confirmation this is not a demon or any kind of other, hell-bound deceiver, that would be a problem for a lot of people. And I'm always looking for anything, even here on Earth, especially here on Earth, because that's all I know. Anything that pluralizes the creation story, anything that brings pluralism into and grants equal validity to all creation stories, myths, narratives, whatever the hell it is. Anything that dilutes the Christian salvation narrative is you got to ask a question: what the hell? What's really going on? You have to. That's why you flat earthers, you actually really have it a lot easier. The flat, I understand, like it's almost like a cheat sheet. It really is like a cheat sheet. Really is. They have it simple. There's no outer space. We are exclusive creations in a fish tank that is right in the crossfire of an epic battle between heaven and hell. And therefore, anything outside of those parameters must be technocratic in nature or an agent of the devil. And that is and that's actually comforting. I got to say, that is actually a comforting worldview. That's comforting right there. It's like, at least we're just in the crossfire of an epic battle between heaven and hell. And we are more important than anything. That is really comforting right there. All right, let's take a call. 737, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, hey, bud. I was just thinking that face-to-face, I don't think would ever happen because of the fact is I think we'd always try to kill it first. Mm-hmm. Unless they have some kind of a deal to put us at calm so we're not mad or something.
If you remember back to, what was it? It was January 2025. Was it January 2025? That's when we started getting the powdery fog along the East Coast, and that's when we started getting all of the drones over New Jersey. And I think it took like day 3 before people started taking out the shotguns in New Jersey. Trying to shoot these things that were above their heads, just floating around, with pretty lights on it and all that stuff. I think that's one of the biggest questions people have ever had about people who are, chronically in the crossing paths with Bigfoot. You're like, all right, well, why hasn't anybody shot him? Anytime we find something that we don't understand, we usually shoot it and then ask questions later. So what's going to happen with this?
We know how to kill mass if that was to happen.
Well, also, you think about what Timothy Alberino just brought up here. He said that we're talking about biologics with craft that are nuts and bolts, and he used that as a euphemism. It wouldn't actually be nuts and bolts, but it would be something physical, something that is susceptible to kinetic damage to some degree or another. Unless of course they're just amorphous blobs of energy that float around, and then I think more people would start considering the heaven or hell narrative there. But I don't know if projectile.
I think if one landed, it'd have like a camel, like a mirage, like you're in your desert and you think you see water or whatever.
Yeah.
I just think when we see him in the sky or whatever, I think it's a reflection more so than anything else.
So more of a translucent kind of a thing.
Oh, of course. Can you imagine the crowd of people and other things that would happen if it actually, looked like a Camaro or something?
I know. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Perhaps the New Jersey drones that just kind of went away, that was a nice little market test just to make sure that we are who we are, that we're going to eventually take out the slugs and we're going to start firing at these things. And those were the size of Volkswagen, some people said. I still haven't seen a drone that big. And they were being seen on the regular over New Jersey about a year or so ago. Anyway, this was a great call. Thank you for chiming in.
Hey, you bet. Have a good one, man.
Take care. All right, let's take a call from Aaron Moriarty. What's going on, Aaron?
Hey, Frank. Thanks for taking my call. I had a cable access show out here in Sturgeon, Wisconsin in the early 90s, mid-90s. And it aired 3 times. It was a live call-in show, and people were calling in with their experiences from the 50s. And then after the third episode aired, I got a call from the chief of police of Sturgeon Bay, who was screaming at me on the phone to, Moriarty, you got to stop that UFO show of yours, or I'm going to throw you in jail, throw away the key, and no one will ever know where you are. So that's pretty, and they would not accept my next tape that I brought in. In fact, they called the cops on me.
Well, wait, did the police expand on why? Like, what was the fallout of your public access show where people are calling in with some really OG 1950s UFO unexplained experiences? Like, what was the fallout from people sharing these stories in the 90s? That was actually kind of a popular format back then.
Yeah, that's what I thought too, and it was just crazy. But I just recently found out that Sturgeon Bay was the origin from 1952. APRO started the aerial phenomena, whatever it is, but the Lorenzens from Sturgeon Bay. They later moved to Arizona, and it changed its name to MUFON. So that started here. So maybe they didn't want to. I don't know. But as you know, I'm friends with Andrew Bashago, and one of the people he talked to was in the programs with was Bernie Mendez. Have you heard about him?
Bernie Mendez? No.
Bernard Mendez. He was hired by Nixon to investigate these things that DARPA was working on, time travel and teleportation. But he also was one of only 4 people in the 60s and 70s who was able to communicate with aliens, extraterrestrials. So whenever they had questions from the extraterrestrials, they'd bring someone like Bernie in. One time they brought him in and said, we are monitoring all of your communications, your radio and television. And we see a war going on in your television, but we can't find it anywhere on your planet. Please explain this. And he said, oh, those are movies. They're either recreations or they're fiction. Fiction is something that's not real. They had never heard of that, never conceived of that. So as advanced as they are, they don't know anything about our culture or anything. But think about it. And some of their officers lost rank because they made contingency plans based on our transmissions. So Godzilla, King Kong, and the Starship Enterprise may have prevented us from being taken over by aliens.
It sounds like that could be the case. Hey, this is Aaron Moriarty of Truth Quest. Thank you so much for calling in. I just pulled up. I'm going to read this. I just pulled up a bio on Project Camelot, the portal website over here on Bernie Mendez. I'll read this out for a second. Is that all you wanted to throw into the mix, Aaron?
One more thing. I've been in this for many decades, and the more I research everything, the more everything is connected. Everything is connected. So religion, aliens, it's all connected.
Some would agree. And I appreciate you, Aaron. Thank you so much. Here you go. Bernie Mendez. Nice grainy figure. Whistleblower who has stepped out of the shadows to reveal his involvement in deeply classified special projects for the United States government and military during the 1970s and 80s. Hired by then President Richard Milhous Nixon in January of 71 as a special assistant at tender age of 17, Bernie Mendez was tasked with negotiating directly with various extraterrestrial races such as Greys and the Palladians from 71 until 74 during the peak of the Watergate scandal. They brought in a 17-year-old to negotiate on behalf of the United States government with gray aliens. You know what I was doing at 17? I won't tell you what I was doing at 17. I would not have been trustworthy. Do not trust me to talk to these damn things. I've got my own problems. His duties took him all over the world on top-secret missions to Australia, England, Alaska, Antarctica, the former Soviet Union, and classified underground bases, such as Area 51, Camp Hero, that's Montauk Air Force Base, Mendez was also a participant in the time travel experiments via jump room technology and other highly advanced clandestine technology by the military-industrial complex. Oh, that's what Andrew Bashago was a part of. Which, of course, Aaron just brought up again, and I hope that Andrew is doing well. His work for the government continued into the 80s until the eventual retirement while he was still in his 20s. His story, however, doesn't end there. Yet another fascinating chapter goes all the way back to his days as an infant when he had his first interaction with ETs, which is And who documented this? Who documented his first interaction with ETs as an infant? Bernard Mendez is now telling his story to audiences around the world and revealing the truth behind the cosmic level clearance, which allowed him to access to many of our government's most deeply guarded secrets. Well, I mean, I would like to. I'll look into him. I'll look into him a little bit more. A little bit more. See if we'll get him on the show. I think he's alive. That's what I saw. Let's get to the super chats a little bit. Remember, everybody, if you send in a super chat tonight, of course, tomorrow is Thursday, so I'm drawing a name. Everybody who sent a super chat or multiple super chats, I count your name every time. So you have better and better chances every time you contribute to the show on Patreon. On YouTube, on Rumble, on Quite Frankly Superchat.com, and on the Gold Pills. You've got a golden ticket from Keto Brains. You're getting a full bag of Keto Brains. You've got some Yes Cacao Wild Balls. You're going to love these. It's going to be one of your new favorite snacks. It is for Aurora. And then, of course, I threw in a 1964 silver $50 Kennedy head. And there you go. So we've got a golden ticket. We've got silver. We've got botanical chocolate. And I will add more tomorrow. I'll add this. Oh, you know something else? Real quick as we take another call. Patreon has whole they keep adding really great new tools over there, and they're actually converting the website, the platform, into a lot more of just a social platform, because I guess Jack from Patreon really also does not like how things on YouTube and Rumble and all the other places really are right now, where all of those subscribers that you work so hard to gain, you can't reach anymore. So Patreon has become a lot more social, and they've done a lot of different things in there. And one thing that I've actually been meeting a lot of new people just on Patreon, and that's been great. But they also added in a feature where I can put things on sale. So just to try this out, I put every sponsorship tier that I have, starting at $5 on Patreon, at 50% off for the first month for the next week, from tonight, the 13th, until the 20th. For the next week, if you sign up on Patreon as a monthly sponsor, you get that first month for 50% off. That means if you get in for $5, your first month is $2.50. It's less than a New York slice of pizza. That's crazy, especially when you think about how all of the universal perks you get with the content that I'm making for you guys on the side, the book clubs, the film clubs, the watch parties, the Sunday streams, all of the product discounts, everything. That's like hundreds of dollars worth of perks and privileges that you get for, at least for that first month, $2.50. So check it out. It's a new tool. I'm going to be using it all to my advantage to help grow the show and fund the next. I know what the next phases are. I know where we're going. I know what I want to do, what I've always wanted to do, and I know how we're going to start it. But of course, whereas some people sprint, we have got to saunter until we're able to grow our margins a little bit. So that's what we're all trying to figure out. It's painstaking pace. I understand that. But thank you all so much. Again, the core for not only keeping this whole thing afloat, but allowing it to keep growing at a modest pace. But you guys are angels. Thank you for being sponsors and super chatters. All right. Dragon Sage says Alien Reality Therapy Fund. Yes, everybody go to therapy. JJ WFAN. JJ WFAN. Like the fan? What's going on? We got a New Yorker here? Wow. How many New Yorkers do we have in the chat room? Press 1. I want to see all the chat rooms. I want to see how many home slices I got around here. Not the transplants. I want to see who was born here, who still finds themselves here, languishing away. Jay Britt says, I was glad to see that there doesn't seem to be any bad blood with Timothy regarding the razzing he was getting elsewhere. Great job keeping the discussion pulled together. Timothy and I, hey, we've got years in the bank, man. We got years in the bank, so I didn't think it was going to be anything less than a great show, and I wish that it was not interrupted by the wind as much. Again, the first time we ever had any technical issues, of course, it was tonight. Let me see here. Matt Stranger says, thanks, Frank. Love Timothy. Every time he's on the show, I learn so much. ST says, we're so happy you've joined us again, Timothy. And then Shotzi, last night's chill was fun. I like it too. Nephilim says, cheers, Frank. I would like to see if they would include everything from Magic 12, Majestic 12 in there with the UFO files release. We're going to know. You know, I kind of yawned with this last one. It's essentially just tic-tac related stuff. Here's a white dot that flew over Iraq. Here's a white dot that flew over this. Here is something that looks like an Ezekiel wheel. Is it a camera glare? Is it something else? I don't know. So I was just like, okay, well, this can't be it. So I'm just going to wait for the next rounds. Obviously, there's really nothing here right now. Safety Net says, one love. Thank you. Thank you so much, Lynn. Corey, Silly Boar, Smart Poker says, good to see you all. Great to see you, Smart Poker. JR at the Lake, not your mom. This is all on pilled.net, where we're going to be having a flip side tonight. I can't wait for the flip side tonight. I just want a joy scroll. The Sentinel says maybe Tim should stop his camera and do audio only. That would have been that maybe I'll keep that in mind for next time. I was thinking it, but I don't know. I don't know if that really would have helped. Belushi says, great show. Thank you for being out there, Belushi. Can't wait to be on a stream with Belushi again one day. Flying Bulldogs. Tommy Jekyll. Making up slightly for late arrival. Thank you, Molly. Good to see Tim again, even with the wind interference. Lynn RC, Sean Joe, Last Mimsy. Michael Rennie, Day the Earth Stood Still, could not be asked, do you recognize a power greater than yourself? What be that like? Do you recognize a power greater than yourself? Michael Rennie, The Day the Earth Stood Still, could not be asked, do you recognize a power greater than yourself? I don't know what that means. My next question would be, Klaatu, is the show going to hit 10K gold pills and 100 red pills things? Oh, I would love that. That'd be great. I'm going to need more proof of aliens than trust me, bro, says Molly Arty. Listen, that's the whole thing here. And the first round was very weak. I would have rather have led with something big and then give all this other stuff. It's like, oh, by the way, here's some additional indexed technology that we caught on radar or infrared or something else like that. You would think that, I mean, that's the way I would stack it. As somebody who deals in media and entertaining and trying to hook you in and something like that. If you bring the big stuff up for, and then just get through the end. Oh, by the way, here's some grainy video images that you're used to seeing for the last 80 years. Shit like it. That would be great if there was just a little bit more about the flyovers in Washington, D.C., if there was a lot more that we could be learned that is going to be declassified about the battle over Los Angeles, all of those craft that were over those major cities. I want to know more about the Phoenix Lights. Those conversations, those broadcasts, people calling in about the Phoenix Lights, those are great ones. That's the good stuff. That is some cozy late night listening. I don't care if it's real or not. I want to hear people calling in and saying there's something going on. And it wasn't drones, because there was a blackness and a fixed form to all those lights, and there was a black mass as a backdrop to those lights in Phoenix. Great stuff all around. Great stuff all around. Hey, okay, so, the lines are still open, but in the meantime, this is the last thing I'll do before we leave. A little something that I like. Things that I like. The moment the world said goodbye to static forever. Now, I don't know if you guys remember this, where you were. This is from Mind-Bending Facts. I saw this on Instagram, and I had to set it aside because I remember where I was, at least in New York. I don't know how widespread this was, but I know in New York there was a turnoff date for all of the television broadcasts that you would get on your bunny-eared television receivers, and everything went digital officially, that no more can you bring a television outside and extend those telescoping antennas and, pick up WPIX and a Yankee game or something else like that on the back porch. You needed to have some kind of cable. And there was a countdown to it all, that it just all went fuzz. And this was, I think we took a picture of it. I don't know. I got to ask my mother. I know that we were ready for it. We were documenting it, but I don't know what we did it with. If it was a handheld, or if it was really just taking a picture of us next to the television as it went to fuzz. But take a look at this. Mind-bending facts. For over 60 years, analog television was the heartbeat of American living rooms. Families gathered around the glow of rabbit ear antennas, adjusting tin foil and tilting screens just to catch their favorite shows through the static. It was imperfect, it was fuzzy, and completely irreplaceable. And on June 12th, 2009, it was gone forever. That night, 971 television stations simultaneously switched off their analog signal for the last time, ending an era that had defined how entire generations experienced the world. The final moments were surprisingly emotional. Some stations marked the occasion with poetry and montages, while old-time engineers gathered the transmitter buildings that they had worked in for decades to flip the switch one last time. The government spent billions distributing converter box coupons to households that weren't ready, and the FCC helpline received over 317,000 calls in a single day. What most people, that's people who still didn't get the message back then. There are still people in this audience who don't know that Lauren is pregnant, and we're having another girl in November. Still, and back then, everybody was tuned into the same media source, and still 317,000 people called up the FCC and said, why'd my television turn off? Where's the what's going on? There's something wrong with the television. You can't get anybody on the same page. What most people don't realize is that the freed up airwaves didn't just disappear. Those old TV frequencies were auctioned off and repurposed for the mobile broadband and emergency response systems that power our smartphones today. The end of analog TV didn't just change how we watch television, it quietly built the wireless world we live in now. And here is it's crazy that this is 2009 and it looks like it's from 1993. Here's a recording that these two kids did to mark the end of an era. Let's watch it. Hold on a second.
Right after this too. You ready? One.
Didn't see that one coming.
Okay, ready? One.
Next time, Saturday at 7 on WGN. WGN
One, two.
If something's in the air.
Yeah! Okay, quick, get a picture of me before it goes out.
The foul problem. How you
1, 2, 3.
3 means go.
Okay. Okay, now we're gonna sit in front of the TV and watch it. It's gonna go out. Fucking last thing broadcasted on analog TV was Sex and the City. Historical notes. Stupidest show on earth. Except here it comes. It's gonna go black. Or at least it should. No more analog! Yeah, no more analog!
Yeah. Seemed like a great thing, didn't it? Oh, to go back to 2009 and just leave a couple of notes of warning. To go back to 2009, just leave a couple of notes of warning. Oh, man. You know, I remember that. Do you guys remember that? Yeah, you think about that, and it seems like a big leap forward. Then you say, you know what? Can I just go back? Can I watch one more grainy Channel 11 baseball game? Can I listen to Phil Rizzuto one more time? But that's all I wanted to leave you with tonight, because we're talking about all types of alien technology and where we're going to be going in the future, the very near future. Of course, where we're going is the comment section to fight with each other, because we've all got it figured out. We just got to convert the other person to our side, of course. And yeah, that's it. So thank you guys so much. Tomorrow we'll be live. I believe that Leo Zagami is coming back on tomorrow. So we can talk about the Cyber Satan situation and maybe some rumors from the Vatican, and who knows? It's been a while since Leo's on, so we'll be getting into the weeds on some Illuminati based stuff. And then in the second half, I don't know what we'll do to close out the broadcast week, but it'll be a good one. It'll be a good one. And for now, let me just make sure I didn't miss anything in the super chats. Let me just make sure I didn't miss it. Road Trips' instant pot insectoid could be tasty. Yeah, I don't want any insectoid pot pie. Insectoid pot pie? Get the hell out of here. Get out of here. Cat Squirrel says, if they are ET, why do we never see their long approach toward Earth? It's just a thought. Great show. Well, I don't know. Because they're not going to be coming here with carbureted engines. You know, that whole long approach. I think it would be pretty... either some kind of a Rosen bridge, or it's going to be a little bit more instantaneous. It's going to be poof. And there's got to be cloaking. Listen, there's some crazy things going on in the sky. Crazy things. You remember Rich Barris's testimony about that stuff? That's the kind of stuff I love hearing. I love hearing about that. Like football field size objects that are just gone in an instant. Where they went, if they went to the other side of the world, the other side of the realm, whatever the hell it is, no matter where, if they left the Earth, if they can't leave the Earth, the fact that there is absolutely paradigm-changing, shattering technology out there like that, it changes everything. The way that we should be living our lives, it changes probably it's so much about history. We opened up with the whole Egyptian thing, and we'll get around to that some more later on. But for tonight, let's put a bow on this one. I can't wait to see you guys tomorrow, 7 o'clock. And for now, I'm going to drop the link in the chat room for the flip side. If you don't see the link, just go to quitefrankly.tv and press play. And we'll be there until 9:30 when all the timed lights go off. We're going to let our hair down. I have my hair up in a bun. In a hipster bun right now. It looks like I don't have any hair, but it's all up there. It's luscious. It's beautiful. We're going to let our hair down, and we're going to watch some outrageous reels. And it's all going to be completely uncensored, stuff that we couldn't get away with anywhere else. All from Instagram, because that's where the tip of the spear is right now for outrageous material. So join us right now. I'll be throwing it into the chat room. Thank you for everything, and thank you again, Timothy Alberino. We'll see you tomorrow night. I did it again, didn't I? Yep. I was on a good run.
I'll catch you on the flip side.
Quite Frankly is filmed before a live studio audience, and now our super chatters, starting with and finishing with Road Trip. No, I'm just kidding. There's Dragon Sage, there's JJWFAN, there's Jay Brits and Matt Stranger, ST, Shotzi, our wonderful friends over there on Rumble, and the many of you on Pilled. Let's kill that 10,000 gold Pilled goal for tonight, and we'll see you guys tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Set your own notifications. If you haven't seen me in a while, set your notifications. You'll never see me again unless you do that. Fight against the algorithm. Let's push on through. Let's build up the numbers again just by sheer will. All right. Love you all. Good night.